Good to have you with us today. Republican lawmakers in 10 U.S. states have suggested bills to impose harsher punishments on illegal protests. The proposals would strengthen existing laws for acts of civil disobedience. They include fines of up to $100,000 for environmental protests, for example in Colorado, and even prison terms for blocking traffic in Iowa. Now, the bills do not specifically mention any recent mass protests, but some have drawn comparisons with unrest over Trump's recent decisions. Now, apart from restricting violence, there are fears that the measures could result in a crackdown on peaceful protests. We heard from analysts who weighed the ups and downs of the proposal.
What's happening is an attempt to criminalize protest and dissent. Americans have always had protest. They've always been engaged in dissent. We have the First Amendment, the right to redress grievances, to assemble, to speak out.
There is a difference when you're blocking traffic, when you're impeding people from going where they want to go. And some of these laws had to do with people who were fiddling around with oil and gas. Now, those are different. Those laws are not considered unjust and therefore breakable. So there is a difference in the two different types of protests. People are concerned about some of these protests gone wild. And if there is a reaction to some of the more violent protests we've seen recently, we do have to be on guard.
These were completely peaceful protests at the Women's March. People who just wanted to be there, either because they were pro-Trump or anti-Trump, who just wanted to be present. When the government conducts itself like that, it creates a confrontational situation.
I frankly think that the women's protest, to a degree, missed the point. Of course, you know, I don't quite understand what they were protesting, but we certainly didn't see, with 8 years of Obama droning women overseas and families overseas. There are so many different things to focus on. The idea that the person you didn't like ended up getting elected, I'm sorry, that's happened to me my entire life.
We need fundamental change, and I don't think it's going to come from either of those two parties. And I think most Americans think that, too. Half the country didn't vote. Only 25% voted for Trump, 25% plus a little bit voted for Clinton. Most people are disillusioned. They want change.